everyone, and welcome to a very, very special dev chat. Today is the Infernal Rules overview. There are a ton of you right now in Twitch chat and on Facebook, so welcome everyone. We look forward to letting you know all the infernal secrets we'll be going over today.
Can you zoom in and see this?
Wow! There's a screenshot on Facebook right now.
Okay. It's real blurry.
I'm Will Hungerford, lead developer at Privateer Press. With me is my boss, Schoonover, development manager at Privateer Press. And all the way there at the end, so far away from me, is Jeff Olson.
Hello.
Playtest coordinator here at Privateer Press.
That's
we are
me.
your infernal development team. Bum, bum, bum.
But also, we're the everything else development team, too.
Yeah.
So I know everyone is here to learn about Infernals. We're going to get into that momentarily. We've got a couple quick announcements we want to make. First off, for anyone who's wondering about Mini Crate, we do want to remind everyone about the current Mini Crate models. The Seeker of Silence has become the new Mini Crate for the War Machine line, and Daidoji Uji is the current miniature for the Legends of the Five Rings.
That might be my favorite name so far.
Daidoji Uji? It is fun to say.
Yeah.
And the new VIP model, if you sign up for 6 months, is the Bride of Arcadius, which we showed off. So if you get a 6-month sub in your next shipment, you'll get the Bride of Arcadius model. Also, a reminder that the stream schedule is got an update coming. You know, every Wednesday we do the dev chat, like what you're looking at now, and every Thursday get your paint on with Jordan. Those are always at 10 a.m. Pacific. Yeah. But the next Rumble, the battle reports are returning, and March 8th. I believe it is you and I.
It is. We're going to play some Monster Apocalypse with some newer models, things we haven't shown on the stream yet.
Yep. So that's going to be pretty cool. And then Primecast Live will be March 22nd.
Yeah.
So.
Doberino.
Yeah, it's and we also got some cool news about Lock and Load coming later on in the show. So if you're interested about Lock and Load, we've got a really fun announcement for you. But
Exciting.
that's all the news.
That's all the news.
Let's just jump right in for why everyone is here.
Yeah.
Twitch chat is up. Facebook chat is up. We will be trying to get to your questions as we can. I'm sure there's going to be a lot. So if we don't get to your questions, sorry. We will try and talk to you as much as we possibly can. Hello, everyone. I see the numbers are still increasing. So everybody, get in here. Go.
I
Come on in.
also want to congratulate everyone for their eagerness, because we've already got people in there asking if they missed anything, and it's 2 minutes into the stream.
BS around.
We would have had to talk really fast to get through every single detail.
Stream's over, guys. Good stream.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Yeah.
Catch everyone else up. We're out of here.
This is such a good troll opportunity that we really failed.
Just cut the stream, Tony. Just.
So today what we're going to be telling you about is, we're going to give you a quick overview of the talking points, and then we'll get into each of them. Infernals are coming this year. And Infernals are the brand new faction coming for War Machine Hordes, but they are not really either.
Correct.
They're a completely new system. There'll be a lot of things that you're used to, like boosting and shaking, but the way that it all comes together is really unique. If you're not sure what Infernals are one of the big bads of the setting. I'm talking like one of the major villains that have existed since the very beginning, since the old IK RPG, like the original 3.5 version of the Monsternomicon. When you think about Kane and Urkane being the afterlife where souls go, where the soul war is going on.
Yeah.
Even like the slip, the void that exists where like Banes come out of and where Scorn souls go to be tormented. Urkane, where Grimkin come from. The Infernals are outside of all that.
Yeah.
The Infernals are truly extra-dimensional alien beings. And as the more materials come out for Infernals, you're going to learn more about the backstory of the deals that were made with Infernals, what exactly happened, why they've come to collect. But they are soul collectors. And a long time ago, we made a deal with them, and it is coming to bite us straight in our booties.
Yeah, humans wouldn't have magic without making a deal with the Infernals. They're very much like the devil equivalent in the setting. Like, people make deals with them, that Faustian kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then they eventually have to pay up on those deals.
Yep.
And it's one way that people seek power in the setting, but it's kind of the worst way to do it.
And they use
very short-sighted.
The souls they collect, as Doug was explaining on a previous Primecast, they actually use to make things. They are basically soul carpenters.
Yeah.
An infernal army is typically made up of 3 different things. Infernalists, which are humans or other races that sort of, I'm not going to say worship, but draw power, have made deals with the Infernals themselves. These are, you're going to see a lot of these in your forces. They are sort of the main chaff/powerful solos and so on. But your main like cannon fodder troops would be like just basic cultists. Then there are the Infernal Horrors. The Infernal Horrors are these otherworldly, sort of insane alien beasts that the Infernals themselves have created out of soul stuff and used to go do their dirty work.
And they're your battle group models.
They're your battle group models.
Your Warjack, Warbeast equivalent things.
And then there's the Infernals themselves.
Yes.
Which you will see represented both as the Infernal Masters, which are your Warcaster Warlock equivalents, and we'll be talking about how they work in a second. And there are going to be Infernal Troops, which are true Infernals that have come through and are like very elite, rip everything to shred infantry.
Yep.
Yeah.
So why don't we just...
But we're not going to talk about any specifics about
Yeah.
that.
So,
Let's make sure where everyone's clear. So the point of today's stream is we're going to talk to you about how Infernal Masters and their Essence system work, how Infernal Horrors and their Essence system works, and how summoning will work in the game. Those are the topics we're going to cover today. We're not actually going to be showing model stats and rules and spells and stuff. That's going to be next week.
This document will go up.
Wow!
This document will go up as part of the CID.
Correct.
We're going to make a PDF of this. Normally, when we have new rules or new theme forces, we just put them in the posts.
Man, I hope there's no, like, you know how sometimes we leave tags in the rules
Enhance.
of things that, like, we're not supposed to...
It's fine.
Okay.
Jeez. Okay.
This document's going to go out to them next week.
All right. So next week, when the CID on March 6th begins for Infernals, you'll get all of your model rules. You'll also get something that, like Oz is holding here, which is basically be a cut from what would go into a rule book or whatever. The actual official written literature rules of how all their stuff works. What we're going to go over today is kind of like the talking points and the bullet points so that the community kind of understands what's going on, so that when the CID launches next week, everyone can jump in and kind of have a great foundation of how all these things work, and that way we don't have to spend the first day just answering a jillion questions on how something works.
And we made some visual aids.
Yep. And we're gonna
so you guys can screen cap things and kind of
post it and share with the community.
Have something right now that's words that represents what we're talking about, but isn't literally the rules that we're going to give you next week.
Correct. Yep. So should we do a thing?
Let's jump right in.
All right.
I said that earlier. Like, wait, I was like, let's jump right in, and then we talked a whole bunch. I mean it this time. Let's jump right in.
Actually, okay, now we can jump in.
Let's start with the Infernal Masters.
Yep. So by the way, those are the topics we're going to cover. What you have on the screen right there is Masters in Essence, Horrors, and Summoning.
Yep.
So
So the Infernal Masters are your Warcaster and Warlock equivalent.
Yeah.
Just like in a regular game, if you kill the Infernal Master, the game ends.
Yeah.
Right.
Assuming you're only playing a single caster game.
Yeah, and assuming you're playing a single caster game. They have spells, they have feats, but one of the big things that's going to be different is they don't use Focus or Fury.
Nope.
Infernal Masters use Essence, as do the Horrors as well. Essence is the core resource mechanic for Infernals. So to give a little bit of basics of what an Essence point can do, a Master or a Horror will be able to spend Essence to boost attacks, make additional attacks,
Shake effects.
The Master can spend it to heal.
Yep.
It's kind of a mix of Focus and Fury, though, in the way that it works.
Yeah, it's very much a blend of the two systems, because when this faction entered development a long time ago at this point, a big part of it was making sure that we used, existing systems, because we wanted to make sure that we were providing familiar systems for the players to kind of base off of, without just like making up something totally different and complicated that people have no frame of reference for.
Yep.
Yeah.
So to give you an example of how it's kind of a blend, Masters allocate Essence to Horrors, and they spend those like you kind of would Focus points. However, Masters can also transfer damage to Horrors like a Warlock can to a Beast.
Correct.
So they don't soak 5 like a Warcaster does. They transfer over to the Beasts. But the way that they refill Essence points is completely unique.
Yeah.
Whereas in Hordes, obviously, you pull it off your War Beasts, and in War Machine, you just replenish every turn.
Yeah.
In Infernals, the Infernal Master has to sacrifice a model with marked soul. These are usually going to be your human Infernalists to replenish their essence. Alternatively, they can cut themselves. 1 point of damage gives them 1 essence point. But Infernals, and when we get to summoning, one of the balancing acts of Infernals is they are very powerful in the beginning, and then they degrade.
Yeah.
Because you have to constantly eat your own guys to replenish your essence to full. A lot of the Infernals, when you look at their rules, also have mechanics that allow them to collect the souls of enemies. Those souls turn into essence points as well. But obviously, you might run into Cricks. You might run into an all-wold army where your opponent has no souls to give you. Don't worry, you're not completely screwed.
Yeah.
You kill your loyal followers and replenish your essence that way.
And late in the game, like we said, those people who have sold their souls that you are sacrificing to do that with, they are important solos and stuff in your army.
Yes.
So you might have 3 or 4 of those models. You may be like, so which one of these can I give up right now to get my essence back to continue playing the game?
Yeah.
And maybe you manage to get a couple of souls, but not enough. So you still have to sacrifice somebody.
Yep.
And that's an interesting thing about how they play compared to everybody else.
Yeah.
The rule in particular you're going to see referred to a lot is Marked Soul. Marked Soul is a new keyword rule that's going to appear on a lot of the different Infernalists.
Yeah, the human or non-human cultists who make up the terrestrial forces of the Infernals.
Yeah. Anything that's not an Infernal.
Basically anyone who
thing.
said like, yeah, you can totally have my soul later as long as I have sweet power now.
So that's the basic of how an Infernal Master works, but obviously we said the word summoning a lot. Before we talk about how they summon, which is a huge component of the way the Infernal faction works, let's talk about what they'll be summoning and how they function, which is the Infernal Horrors themselves.
Yeah.
You want to go over those?
Yeah, sure. So just to kind of hit the bullet points, as we mentioned earlier, as was shown in the slide, Infernal Horrors and Infernal Masters both begin the game with their full essence on them.
Yep.
So an example is an Infernal Horror might have an essence stat of 2 or 3 or even 4. If you have a number of those Infernal Horrors on the table, they will begin the game with all of their essence on them.
And
because you don't only have to summon them. You can put them in your army by spending points just like normal and have a battle group of horrors at the beginning of the game.
And one thing, just because that didn't make sense to you, you know how Warjacks only ever get 3 focus, but how in Hordes the beasts have different fury stats, and that's how much fury they can possibly gain. Horrors have an essence stat that is variable from 1 to whatever we want it to be, and that's how much essence can be allocated to them. So again, they don't generate their own like forcing for War Beasts. The essence is allocated to them by the Infernal Master, and then they spend it similar to how a Warjack would spend it, but the amount they can have is equal to essence stat, and as you mentioned, whatever that essence stat is, they begin the game maxed out with that much.
Really importantly, alongside that, they don't lose it. It doesn't go away like
from turn to turn.
Like focus clears off Warjacks.
Yeah, essence stays
It's more
on
like the way War Beasts work with if you don't spend it or use it or take it off them in some way, it just sits there.
Yep. And real quick, I'm going to rewind real fast just because I saw a good question in the chat from Zitch, Lord of Free Usernames in Twitch chat. And so Infernal Masters, unlike, say, a Warcaster who just gets their focus pool every turn, or a Warlock who reaves or leeches Fury from their War Beasts, an Infernal Master doesn't actually replenish his pool every turn. Or every round, I guess. Instead, to do so, you must sacrifice one of your Mark Soul models in your control range, and that refills your entire pool. Now, what's important about that, what Zitch's question was, is can I sacrifice my opponent's models? No, it must be one of your friendly faction Mark Souls.
Yeah, the sacrifice rule is kill one of your own models.
Yep.
You can collect souls from your opponent.
Yes. And those will turn into essence,
it's
just like...
possible you could collect enough souls to fill you all the way up to essence-wise.
And you can also leech, and by leech I specifically mean you can cut yourself for damage on your Infernal Master to, I'm going to take 4 damage to put 4 essence on or whatever.
Yep. Great question. Aosmir says, can you transfer to horrors that are full of essence? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep,
this is not hordes, and so they
there's
all
no
start...
limit on what their essence pool is. They could be 0, they could be maxed out, etc.
But they don't reave from dead horrors, and
Correct.
they don't leech from dead horrors. They can only leech from their own hit points.
Yeah, and Silver X59 says, can you pull essence from your horrors? You cannot unless you have unless a specific Infernal Master had a very specific spell or ability that says they could do that as part of that spell. That is not a core rule they do. So again, the horrors gain essence, which is allocated to them by the masters. They spend essence similar to a Warjack. And the masters replenish their essence back to their maximum by sacrificing a friendly model with Mark Soul in their control range.
And there's one other way they're pretty normal. and that they can make power attacks, because they are things that are equivalent of Warjacks and
You'll be in a
Warbeasts.
trample, slam, throw, all the stuff you're used to.
But there's a bunch of other ways they're not normal.
Yes.
Yes.
So
like running and charging.
So where are we at on the slide here? So Infernal Horrors will have what we're calling damage webs, and they're actually going to be 3 rings of a damage grid equivalent. You're going to have an outer ring, which will be their biggest ring. You'll have an inner ring, a middle ring, and then an inner ring.
Yeah.
So it'll be 3 rings: an outer, middle, and inner ring. We're calling those damage webs, and that will be how you track their damage. Now, what's unique about the damage webs is, one, you don't roll like a column or a spiral.
Yeah.
You just always mark damage from the outside ring. Once it's filled up, you go to the middle ring. Once that's filled up, you go to the inner ring. And when that's filled up, you're dead.
Yeah, and you can start anywhere on the ring you want to.
Yeah.
So if you're taking some damage, you have to start on the outer ring, but it doesn't matter where on the outer ring you start because there's no actual locations. It's just as soon as that's full, you know to go to the next one. So think of it almost like, take like a battle engine, and if you compartmentalize
if
its
you
damage
put notches
boxes
in the battle engine.
that's kind of what it is.
And so a question from in Twitch chat from Maryland: how does precision strike? It doesn't.
Yeah, precision strike and things that affect Warjacks and Warbeasts and let you choose columns just doesn't work on Infernals at all.
There's no branches or columns.
Yep,
on
you
these
always
things.
work from the outside to the in. So what's interesting about that is if you heal them, you will heal them from the innermost damage ring and work your way out. And Infernal Masters can spend an essence to heal them. There's also some models in the faction that can heal them, etc. So you always work from the inside out, and you damage from the outside in. Now, Infernal Horrors can run and charge without spending essence.
Just baseline.
Just
That is a core rule of Infernals.
Yeah. So they can just run and charge all day long. However, as their webs are crippled, they do suffer some penalties. When the outside ring is crippled, when all of its damage boxes are filled in, it now has to spin an essence to run or charge, very similar to a Warjack or a Warbeast. When the middle ring is crippled, then they roll 1 less die on their attack rolls. Not their damage rolls, just their attack rolls. So outer ring is they no longer run and charge for free, and middle ring is they probably need to boost to hit. And then, spoiler alert, when you fill in the inner ring, they're dead.
Now, one of the most important things about horrors is the tithe. Because what we've been saying is, your master kills a single guy, fills up with essence, allocates that essence out to these horrors. These horrors run and charge for free every turn. That's really efficient. And then the essence doesn't go away on horrors normally like it would on a Warjack.
It stays around from turn to turn.
However, every turn, you must spend 1 essence off every horror in your army. Any horror that you can't spend an essence off of disappears.
It's RFP.
Yeah.
It's RFP'd.
Yeah.
Don't worry, summoning exists.
And I'm gonna correct you real quick. It's not every turn, because that would technically imply your
Oh,
opponent.
sorry. Every one of your turns.
At the end of your turn, you must spend 1 essence on each of your horrors.
But these things are so alien and anti-nature that
They're spending
they have
soul
to
juice
they
to
have
stay.
to hold themselves here by the energy they have, and if they ever run out of energy, then they vanish.
So a decent way to kind of think about it is, this is just straight up a spoiler, there are Infernal Horrors with an essence stat of 4. You can run and charge for free, and then you can buy, boost, etc., 3 attacks, and you'll be sitting on 1 essence. So it's very similar to a Warjack in that you have 3 focus equivalents that you can do stuff with. However, sometimes you're just going to go ham and be like, this Infernal Horror is dead, or I really need him to kill this thing, or whatever, and you spend that last essence because you need to make the magic happen, right? And then he's just going to disappear at the end of the turn. Pew!
So I've seen a lot of questions in the chat asking how things like disruption or certain attacks that affect Warjacks and Warbeasts are going to work on the horrors. The answer is they don't. If you see something that specifically relates to damage grids, life spirals, Warjacks or Warbeasts, horrors are none of that. And so those kind of things like disruption just doesn't do anything to them. Now somebody who has a damage attack that does like POW 12 and disruption, they'll still take the POW 12 obviously. But there's a whole bunch of stuff in the game that does not apply to them. And there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff in the game that does apply.
So I'm going to go with Azmir, I think is the name of this person. It's got a lot of vowels at the beginning of it. Their question is, can Infernal Masters only allocate in the control phase, or can you top up things that have already activated? So the general rule is you allocate during the control phase. But there are other rules in the game that you can give essence to beasts, like the power-up rule in War Machine, where a solo can activate and give focus out.
Some of your more powerful support solos in the Infernal faction are going to be able to walk up and give other Infernals essence points.
Yeah. So there are ways to play around that, like Jeff said, your beast uses all 4 of its essence, and then it would vanish at the end of the turn. But order of activation-wise, you might have something that can run over there and put an essence on it, so it can pay the tithe of that.
Sarah Jane Chu, one of my favorite people on the planet, asks, do the horrors have souls? No. Nope. All horrors are soulless.
I think all Infernals are soulless.
Yeah.
Now, obviously,
not everything in the Infernal faction is soulless, because there are some humans that have sold their souls. But everything that's an infernal creature is also soulless.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of questions popping up about, like, how does this thing work? How does that thing work? Is this feat going to be adjusted? How does this rule work? It is very likely, and those feats will not be adjusted. If you have a feat that affects Warjacks and War Beasts, they will not affect horrors. Yep. Just the way it is. They're a totally weird alien, out of space and time thing that has come to reap our souls, and I'm sorry that so-and-so's feet might not work on them. It's just kind of the way it is.
Well, but also that's part of that is balancing, because if you had like disruption that said remove all focus from a thing, and it can't have more focus, that would just kill the beast, the horror instantly.
Yes.
Because if essence treated like focus, then I had to take all of it off, and I can't give it anymore. Then it's just going to vanish at the end of my turn.
The Infernal Horrors, I think, are living, but I think, like we mentioned, all Infernals are soulless.
Yeah,
they're not undead or constructs, so they are by default living.
Before we go to one of the biggest, weirdest rules that exist for Infernals, let me do a quick recap for everybody maybe just joining us. So Infernal Masters...
You want to recall it back?
You know the recall it. You know the recall it, Tony. I'm just going to go through it real fast. Infernal Masters have essence points. They spend those to cast spells and to boost and all the things you're normally doing with focus. They have to kill a model in their army that has the marked soul rule, typically a human infernalist, to regain their essence every turn. It doesn't automatically replenish.
And by kill, we mean you just like pick a model and you pull it off the table. You don't actually have to make an attack roll.
You sacrifice it.
Yeah.
And that happens at the beginning of your turn during the maintenance control phase, whatever.
Yeah.
Infernal Horrors are their Warjack War Beast equivalent. They begin the game with maximum essence stat. It can be variable. It can be like Essence 2, Essence 4. That's how much essence points they can have on them. They spend essence to do normal power attacks, boosting, buying additional attacks. The Master can allocate more essence points to them. At the end of every of your turns, every beast must spend 1 essence as its tithe. If it doesn't, it's removed from play.
Yeah. So we had a question of if they run out of essence, do they leave corpses and stuff? No, they're RFP. They pop. They vanish. They get sucked back into the whatever.
And part of their utility is all horrors run in charge for free. They've got 3 damage rings. Once the outer ring is gone, they no longer do that for free. When the middle ring is gone, they get 1 less die on attack rolls, so they quickly diminish. Now, when you play this army, one thing you're going to be like is, well, I want to run 9 Infernal Horrors. Well, that's hard, because every turn they're having to spend 1 as their tithe, and when they start running out, they start disappearing. And you're going to see in an Infernal army this constant seesaw of the horrors that are in play versus the horrors you're summoning, because that tithe effect means, as you mentioned, when a horror wants to go all in, it wants to charge for free, make a ton of attacks, boost, maybe make some power attacks. You might just have to say, well, I'm going to spend all the essence points on this, and I don't have a solo nearby that can possibly refill it or any special ability to keep it around, so it's just gone. So you might be like, well, my battle group's just going to evaporate very quickly, unless my Infernal Master is constantly feeding essence, which might make you think they're very essence hungry. But one thing that really works into this is summoning.
Yes.
So summoning is...
Hit that summoning slide there, T-Money.
Summoning is easily... Has been one of the trickiest parts of this to balance.
Real quick, by the way, thanks to Tony for putting up these cool slides for everybody and everything.
Yeah, we wanted to give you guys something you could screen cap and share around that would give you the basics of what we're talking about.
And Tony, just thank you for being...
Tony's the best.
Yeah, look at that thumbs up.
You
That's
are
like a straight Top Gun thumbs up right there.
You are easily in my top 3 favorite people at Privateer Press.
You know what? You're by far my favorite video producer at Privateer Press.
We love you.
All right, sorry, quick Tony aside there. So
summoning. Only the Infernal Master or anybody that can control Infernal Horrors can summon.
Yes.
They can only summon once per activation.
They can summon, if you're playing a 7-turn game, they can summon, theoretically, 1 per turn over the course of 7 turns 7 times, but it's once per their activation.
Yeah, they get 1 summon.
To summon, they spend essence points off themselves equal to the essence stat of the horror they want to summon. Remember, those are variable. It could be 1, 2, 3, 4, 900, whatever it is.
900. 900.
Jesus.
When
They
they
summon a 900
No, they couldn't.
because nobody has 900 essence.
Yeah.
I like when you get sassy, you lean into me.
I'm not getting sassy. No, this is me getting close and explaining to you that like that would be a bad thing.
I'm going to keep
balance-wise,
explaining this.
and that wouldn't really work.
So when
that
you
well.
summon a
So
horror-
I'm trying to like rein you back in.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when you summon a horror, it shows up in play with 1 essence point. It does not show up with the normal full essence points. They start off when they're in your army list. So again, horrors that are in your army list that show up in play when you deploy them, max essence to start. Summon ones only show up with 1. You might be like, well, heck, I got Tithe on turn 1. Yep, but remember, you only get RFP'd if you can't pay the Tithe. So they can go down to 0, and on the following turn, the Master can reallocate essence to them.
Yes.
They're summoned in base contact with the Master, and they can activate normally. So you can summon a horror who shows up with 1 essence, and then it can charge off and go do whatever it wants to.
Yep. You might be able to fill it with various models in the faction that have the ability to add essence to horrors. So you could have it just pop in and run off and try and murder a dude, or you could drop it on the table and have some models run up and try and add essence to it. And yeah, there's lots of flexibility on how you're going to treat these summoned models.
Summoning is an amazing mechanic, but it takes a while and it takes a lot of game reps to really wrap your head around, especially when the CID starts, because one thing that you're doing is effectively, we all collect our armies, we collect our factions, we've got all these models that we love, and Infernals are the first faction that lets you weaponize your collection.
Yep.
So you show, and these, for organized play, for Steamroller and so on, the models you summon don't have to be in your army list. This is just horrors you have off the side, out of the game. They are not part of the structure. So mid-game, you're playing and you're like, I really need this ranged heavy, or I really need this other heavy that has this certain utility. So I'm going to summon that one. It's just whatever you have available to you.
Yeah, whatever you own and want to use.
If you want to summon a Soul Stalker every round, and you can keep them alive and full of essence, then you might have 7 extra Soul Stalkers in the game.
Yeah.
You probably won't. Because the other thing about the balance of this, and you'll see this when you see the full rules, is these things are not as resilient to damage as War Beasts and Warjacks.
And that is part of the balancing act of being able
And
to
that's
summon them.
part of, you can get them for free, technically, points-wise, and so they can't be like a Juggernaut or whatever that you're paying.
In general,
they have points.
There's a really good question. A lot of people are asking, how's it work with theme forces? It doesn't matter. When you summon, it doesn't matter what your theme force is, doesn't matter what was in your army list, doesn't matter what format you're playing in. The Infernals you summon are literally taken from outside the game. So say you had a theme force that said you could only take light horrors, for example. You could summon heavies into it and still have all the theme force benefits. They are vumped into existence outside of any existing rules. So, like, again, it allows you to go, okay, what do I have available to me, and what do I need most right now? Do I need this utility horror that maybe protects my my master? And because they can activate with 1 essence, do I need just, I'm going for the assassination. Here he goes. And that's something you have to watch out for, right?
Yeah.
Like a master can charge in with their, get further up there. Summoning is an anytime ability.
During their activation.
During their activation.
But it's only once per activation.
But
I'm reiterate that.
It's an anytime ability like a feat or a spell. So they would charge in, make the attack, and then they could summon a beast, and when their activation's done, that beast could then take off. And remember, you can only allocate from the master to the beast during the control phase, so you'd have to have other ways to load up more essence on that beast, or the horror, sorry, if you really wanted to do something that turn.
And yeah, like we said earlier, these masters do have battle group points, horror points, and they can start with things in play. So you're going to be able to build a battle group at the beginning of the game, but that battle group is not limited for later turns if you really think you need an extra one of these things or an extra one of
Mike
those.
Carey says, are you only paying points for what you start with? Yes, that's exactly what you're saying. And the
Yeah.
benefit of the beasts or the horrors that you start with is that they begin the game with max essence, whereas the ones you summon throughout the game only come into play with 1 essence.
I want to hit a couple questions too that I've seen. Things like, do the horrors that disappear count towards destroyed points at the end of the game? Yes.
Yes.
Kill every horrors, some back then. Yeah, you can. So you'll have your Infernal Masters will have horror points, just like Warjack or War Beast points, and you can spend those to start the game with some horrors in play, and then you can summon anything you want later on in the game and do anything you want with them. Let's see, I saw a couple other questions.
Oh, there's a really good one right here. Asmir says, when you sacrifice a model for your Infernal Master for essence, is it one model per essence or some give multiples? No. When you sacrifice a model, you sacrifice one model with Mark Soul in your army, and you max out your essence on your master. They go. So if there was an essence 9 caster, you would kill one Infernalist and go back up to maximum. It doesn't require multiple models per essence.
A couple other things I've seen is, do they have animi? No, they do not have animi.
Nope, they're not
and then
war beasts.
We're not going to give the specific values right now, but the Infernal Masters and the Infernal Horrors do have essence stats that are roughly in line with other models existing in the game. So you're not going to see an essence 20 Master. You're not going to see an essence 10 Horror. You're going to see essence 2, 3, 4, 1. You're going to see Masters with 6, 7, whatever, things like that. They're going to be very in line with what you're familiar with. Yes, the Masters do have feats, I see it popped up.
Yeah, we answered
They have
that
a
early
control
on.
range. A control range is double their essence stat.
Yep.
Yep.
A lot of that stuff is baseline things that you would expect because we wanted to make this like War Machine and Hordes.
Grubby Gobber has a
Slightly
great
different.
question.
Yes.
It says, do you only need 7 Mark Soul models since you only have to sacrifice one a turn? In gameplay, if you only had the 7...
Theoretically.
You only bring
Yes.
7
So,
and I killed 2 of them.
Grubby Gobber, theoretically, you're right. You would only
have a
need 7.
problem.
You'd keep them on your back table. You'd sacrifice just those 7 and fill out every turn. That's not actually how it plays out. If your opponent brings... Oh, by the way, the stock of ambush is about to go up a whole bunch. Because when you were facing Infernals, your key priority is to start taking out everything with Mark Soul. Things that have ambush that can get that back line and start taking out. And by the way, a lot of the Infernalists that are providing Mark Soul are not very durable. There's a few of them that are, but generally like the basic cultists are super squishy. I'm talking Def 12, Arm 12 kind of squishy.
Yeah.
Blowing those guys up effectively removes the entire replenish essence mechanic from the Infernal Masters. And this is an army, and again, you're paying tithes on your beasts, you're summoning new ones in who don't show up with as much essence as they started at the beginning of the game. Infernals come out the gate really strong. They are a faction that I feel is strongest rounds 2, 3, and 4. And rounds 5, 6, and 7, you better be winning or have a game plan because they begin to decay very heavily, which is sort of matches their fluff. Like, they have to have a constant influx of souls to exist. And as the attrition sets in, it starts to get very bad for them.
Yes. Yeah, the point of Infernals, sort of the gameplay loop of them is they start very powerful because you start, like most War Machine armies, with your models on the table and your full 75 or 50 or however many points you're playing, and you're playing the game and you're having a good time.
And you don't have to use any essence first turn. Since they can run and charge for free, a lot of that positioning and things you do on your first turn doesn't cost you anything. So you usually go into turn 2 with all the essence that you started with on the table.
Well, so hold on. That might be a little confusing for people. So we've been talking about how at the end of your turns you must pay tithe. Well, you have to spend 1 essence point on all the horrors. Something that Oz is kind of alluding to right now is the main Theme Force bonus for playing the Infernals Theme Force is that on the first round of the game you don't have to pay tithe. So that is round 1 you kind of get a free ticket and everyone can just get up there running for free. After that, rounds 2 through on, you're paying tithe every turn.
Then, as the game goes on, you can opt to summon additional horrors with your Infernal Masters, and that does take their essence, which means maybe you're casting less spells or upkeeping less spells or whatever. Maybe you don't summon because you want to be flinging spells over the place or casting buffs on your stuff or casting debuffs on enemy models. But if you're summoning them, which puts just more stuff on the table for your opponent to deal with, the kind of gameplay loop there is, well, you also have to upkeep them. Otherwise, they just dissipate and disappear. So it becomes this balancing game of how much can I, handle from turn to turn.
Yes.
And pay those tithes and have them do things I want and allocate my essence so that they do more than just their initial attacks and stuff like that. And as you begin losing, as your opponent begins killing your Mark Soul models, your cultists and your solos who are Infernalists who have sold their soul to the devil kind of thing, as those models die, the options of who your master can sacrifice to replenish your essence starts getting really tricky because, let's say, the built-in generic Mark Soul unit is our cultists, and if those are all dead, and you're like, well, I don't really want to sacrifice my 7-point combat bro.
Yeah. But I have to.
But I have to.
But that's the choice you have to make.
So there's a couple quick questions and something I want to talk about that feeds into exactly what Jeff was talking about. So first off, someone says, do you allocate essence prior to sacrificing? No, you sacrifice first, then you allocate your essence. So you replenish, then you allocate. Someone's asked if there's going to be character horrors, not at launch. But here's a good example of the sort of main balance mechanics. The Infernal Masters have some really great spells, but say that you have an Essence 7 Master, and you have Signs Importance, which costs 4, and let's say you have an Essence 4 heavy Horror.
Sure.
So you can do one of those two things. You could cast Signs Importance for 4, or you could spend 4 Essence to summon the Essence 4 Heavy. And that's a really hard choice from game to game, because again, that Heavy is going to show up with 1 Essence, and that's not including any Essence you're allocating out to your Horrors that you may need for them to simply do what they need to do that turn, / pay their tithes for the turn. Infernals have a lot of like really tough decisions that you have to make turn to turn. Basically, summoning is a very powerful spell all of them have available, and it's often going to come at the cost of some very other strong spells they have. But it might be the right call, especially because in Steamroller play, somebody's taking a zone from you, you just summon a guy and then have him run over into the zone to contest while your master goes and does something else. That's something we've been testing a lot, is how it works with that ability to suddenly just have a I keep saying a Warjack War Beast equivalent is what I'm trying to say, show up and either go take a zone or contest a zone. Like that's really, really strong.
Yeah. Well, Chewy has a good question. Infernal Masters don't pay tithe.
Yeah, just the horrors.
Horrors have to pay tithe. The Masters are the supreme beings of this faction. They can exist on Kane without
having...
They have
so much soul goo.
Yeah, because they have a bunch of soul goo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fat stacks in their wallet.
Morellian has a really great question. Is there an incentive to play the Mark Souls forward? Yes, and the reason, the cheaper Mark Souls, like your regular cultists, and the answer is because their support abilities are so strong.
Yeah.
Think of regular cultists as like combat choir.
They're the choir mechanic, beast handler equivalent in the faction. They're that support unit that does that kind of work.
You need them up there to get the most out of your horrors, and you also need to be sacrificing them to replenish the essence on your master, but they are squishy as hell. Yeah. And it's going to require a lot of good positioning on your part and just a really strong game plan. Otherwise, a smart opponent is going to basically crumple your strong points, take out your key support, and your Infernals are just literally going to evaporate off the table.
Yeah, but you guys have seen a preview of a model that makes them a more frontline unit because I believe it was in your Insider. The weapon attachment for the cultist was shown. The guy with the big wide helmet and the great big sword. He helps them be on the front because he's more of a combat guy that is weapon attachment for that unit. So that unit's very flexible in what you can do with it.
Yeah. A couple of questions I want to hit is like, does sacrifice happen before or after soul conversion? You get your max pool of essence from sacrificing a dude, and then you get to convert your souls into additional essence.
Yeah, it works the same way a lot of other things like that
Can
work.
you like spend essence if you're outside your Infernal Masters control range? Yes.
Yeah, this is an allocation mechanic, not a forcing mechanic.
A good way to think of horrors is, in many ways, they're very similar to Warjacks because you put the essence on them, and then what they do with it is totally up to them, and they could be 1,000 inches away from their master. It doesn't matter. However, just like Warjacks, then they won't be allocated to, which means if they go ham and use all their essence and they tithe it off, they're just kind of standing there, not doing much.
Yep. So a couple ones, a lot of people have asked, what is the range for sacrificing a Mark Soul? It has to be in the Master's control range.
Yep.
Someone else, can a Master exceed their essence stat through soul conversion? Because I mentioned at the beginning, is a lot of them have ways to collect souls. The answer is yes, like Crick's caster.
Just like other casters that can collect souls.
They absolutely can. And then somebody mentioned everyone's favorite primal entity of the Circle of Boros, the Lord of the Feast. He's particularly good against cultists, by the way. Very, very good about getting in that back line and killing all the cultists. Yeah. So he got his own Facebook page recently. Did you know that?
Yeah. And yes, like we've said before, Infernal Masters are like Warcasters and Warlocks. They have a feat they can allocate. They have an essence. They cast spells. They're as normal as they can be with all these extra weird rules about summoning.
A pretty good way to think about it is an Infernal Masters and Infernal Horrors work at their core basically the same as a Warlock or a Warcaster and a Warjack and a War Beast. However, they have a couple little. So if you're like, how does this work this way? If it works that way for a Warlock or War Beast, it probably works pretty similarly for a Horror, for example. So yes, it's like they have feats, they have control ranges, they allocate and control range, they can heal, they can spend their essence to heal themselves or heal their beasts, etc.
But I see also a lot of people talking about ambush, and I'm telling y'all, when Infernals comes out, ambush's stock goes up because those Infernalists, man, my Bogtrog ambushers, I had Trawlers and the Husk come up recently, and just getting get in that back line and start just tearing up the Infernalists back there. And as an Infernal player, you have to be smart. You know, an immediate thought a lot of people are going to have is I'm going to take a minimum unit of cultists, maybe 2 minimum units. I'm going to leave them on my back table edge, and I'm never going to move them, and there's going to be my battery for the rest of the game. Yeah. People are going to have a way around that.
Well, but also the army doesn't function that well because we said they're like mechanics and choir and beast handlers. They have a support role to play. And if you just basically buy them and set them back there as batteries, you're losing out on everything they can do. So I saw a question, it popped up 3 or 4 times, and that's why we brought this document. You do remove essence points in excess of your essence stat at the beginning of your maintenance phase. Yeah. So if you have a big turn where you collect a whole bunch of souls and you have a ton of essence, you're not going to have that going into further turns. Because essence doesn't go away, but anything in addition at the beginning of the maintenance phase, so souls and stuff you gathered before that have turned into essence will go away.
Yeah. Woozle Wazzle had a question on Twitch. And it was basically, do masters have more or fewer spells because they can summon? The actual answer is Infernal Masters generally have more spells than a War Machine equivalent.
There's no core rule that says like warlocks kind of have less spells because all their animai are spells. Yeah. There's nothing like that in this. We've made these models good and interesting and balanced in the way we thought they should be. And yes, they kind of also have a spell that says spend essence, summon a beast of that essence cost, but it's not on their card. And
a couple people have asked about healing. How do you heal the horrors? The Infernal Master can spend 1 essence point to heal 1 point off a horror. Remember, they don't have grids or life spirals. It's the web of circles. You always start at your innermost circle and work your way out. So you just start doing it like that. So they... Like monstrosities work with Cephalix, or warlocks work with war beasts. Spend a point, heal a point.
But unlike war beasts, you can't just be like, I put 1 point back in that branch so I can boost this again. Yeah. If you're down to your last 2 or 3 health, then you're going to have to build back out in that middle ring before you can get to the outer ring for the free charges and the free runs.
So the CID is starting next week, and there's a lot of questions going on. We've talked about a lot of stuff, and a lot of your questions about specific interactions are all going to get answered in the CID that starts at cid.privateerpress.com next week. Make sure you join us on that Wednesday. We'll have a dev chat where we'll be going through all the individual models and going through the rule stats, and you'll be able to get a better feel. But what we wanted to really talk about today was just the essence stat, how Masters and Horrors interact, the unique rules about Horrors, and summoning. That way, going into the CID, you had this baseline information. And I think a lot of the very granular questions you might have coming up will get answered when the CID goes live.
And I want to answer one other question real fast. There's been a couple of pop-ups about Archons and stuff. The CID that starts next week is the Infernal CID. It's about the Infernal faction.
What's the best way to combat an Infernal CID? So, one last thing before we go.
Actually, can I jump in real quick before?
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell everyone specifically about the CID and when it's beginning, what our rollout plan for it. I think we're going to have an insider going on as well. But the idea is, the Infernal CID, as we mentioned, starts next week. Typically, when we launch a CID, we release all the rules to everyone early in the morning when we first come in, give everyone a chance to kind of crawl through the PDF, and then come and join us an hour later for the dev chat. We're going to do things a little bit differently here. What we're going to do is the CID will officially launch at 1 p.m. our time, so Pacific Standard Time.
Yep.
We will have a dev chat at 10 a.m., and we will go over all of the models with you. We'll have them all up on the screen, and honestly, that dev chat will probably take 2 hours. That's what we scheduled.
The dev chat next week is going to be a long one.
It's going to be a big one. It's going to be like the Grimkin one.
Just take some time off work. We'll see you there.
Yeah, so we're going to go through all the models in order, all the Masters, all the Horrors, all the units, all the Souls, etc. And we're going to go through them one at a time, answer your questions, explain kind of what's going on, what we want you to test with them, what we want to see. Then, after we finish that dev chat, we'll basically go and launch the CID. Then you can all grab the PDF and have a great time and start posting in the thingy.
Yep, and it's going to be a lot of stuff to test, and we look forward to working with all of you and hearing your feedback. But one thing I very specifically want to mention to everybody, this is not related to Infernals and everything we've talked about. Lock and Load 2019, which is June 21st through 23rd. Tickets are on sale now.
Right now.
Right now.
So pplockandload.com. The event schedule, I believe, is not up yet. I think it's going up soon, but the tickets just went on sale. So if you want to come hang out with us, if you want to hang out with Oz and have him lean in closely to you and talk to you while you're trying to stream.
I won't always do that.
If you want this to happen to you, if you want to pet Hamilton.
I want to squeak him.
Don't do it loud.
Hold on. First off, Hamilton's not on the screen right now, so when you say Pet Hamilton, it could also mean Dougie Hams.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, whatever Doug gives consent for, totally cool.
Yes. So this is why This is why you can't touch Hamilton.
I wanted us to not come back on the screen, so just this weird noise was happening.
The lock and load tickets are up right now. Come join us. We'll be talking about it more going in the future.
If you've never been to Lock and Load, it's a great time. It's located here in Bellevue, where our offices are. Where are we at? What's the venue this year? It's the same venue as last year, but I forgot the Hilton.
Yeah.
The Hilton, thank
the
you.
Hilton on Splash.
We're going to have all sorts of events for Monpoc and War Machine and Hordes. You can come and hang out with the dev team and yell at us.
Maybe we'll play a little Riot Quest. I don't know if I'll have a prototype ready for people by then, but
we're going to have some Riot Quest stuff to show off.
Yeah, we'll have some stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
We'll have releasing some models, I'm sure, very likely. Spoiler alert.
Oh.
There'll be some Infernals there.
There is one last little spoiler I want to give everyone, and that's only because he asked. Travis asked if we could say the name of the theme force for Infernals.
Sure. The theme force for Infernals is named Dark Legacy.
Yep. So Dark Legacy is the theme force name. You're welcome, Travis. We love you deeply. Goodbye, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. And don't forget to join us tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific on Twitch for Get Your Paint On with Jordan Lamb. He will not be painting Infernals or talking about Infernals, but we will see you all next Wednesday for the start of the CID. Seriously, block out 2 hours, everybody. It's going to be a long one.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you never know what Jordan's going to walk in with and show off. He might have.
I mean, we did show off.